Doing all this and I don't have my headset in. Shame. This is not even the headset I want to use. Oh well. You're gonna see this. Let's see this cord. It's not the headset I wanted to use. I'm just sitting here like getting all my stuff together. All right, hi everyone. I am Dr. Vernita Glenn White, life strategist, speaker, author, and all of that great stuff in between. So thank you so much for stopping by. If you are watching the replay, click hashtag replay and be sure to drop some nuggets down below that you're going to hopefully get from the video that I want to share with you today, the message that I want to share with you today. So yesterday, January 25th, was the 9th anniversary of the passing of my grandfather. And by the way, I've titled this Embracing Triggers and Trauma. You may see a different title later on, but that's the concept of this. So, yes, yesterday, January 25th, was the 9th anniversary of the passing of my grandfather. And I've shared this somewhere. I don't know if it was Instagram or on my other fan page or somewhere, but I was like, January has been off to me. It has been a very slow start. Like, what is the problem? It took me a minute to get my vision board together. And you don't have to do vision boards or anything, but I just like to visually see something. And then it was bothering me, like, I felt God telling me this isn't big enough. And I'm like, are you kidding? These are pretty big. So I had to redo the vision board. And then I do this thing where I write a January letter. Still didn't write that. And it's just been very slow to me. And I was like, what is the problem? So I told my sister, and a few weeks ago, I was like, man, something is off this year. Because I'm pretty excited about the beginning of the new year. Like, I have a crown and everything that says this is the best year yet. Even I had it for 2020, and even though 2020 showed us something, I still thought it was a great year. I didn't even feel like wearing my crown this year, my little tiara. And so my sister was like, this is the first time that you've actually slowed down since the passing of our grandfather and mother, because they passed 3 weeks apart. My mom's the anniversary of her death is February 16th. They passed 3 weeks apart. And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, ever since like they got sick, you've been moving. Like, I enrolled in the PhD program months after they passed, started new jobs, been hustling for, in my career, because the job that I got after I graduated, I really didn't want to be there. And then I had to like work hard to be a college professor, all of that, always moving, always traveling. Like in 2018 and 2019, every month I was on a plane, like doing conferences and speaking and things like that. So I've always been moving fast, just moving. And I thought I dealt with everything. I took my time. I had, a grieving process. I went through this whole personal development journey in 2019, all the way to 2020. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm pretty good. But then my sister, out of the mouth of babes, well, she's not a babe, like she's an adult, but she's still my little sister. She was like, the 2020 or this year, you actually had to slow down and think. So now all of these thoughts are coming back up. So I was like, okay, that's true. And yesterday, like I wanted to do this video yesterday, but I was like, I can't be crying in front of people like this on camera. I can't be breaking down like this. So I had to really sit with my thoughts and say, okay, Vernita, you need to get it together because this is ridiculous. What is the problem? So I thought it was grief. Like, I'm like, am I still grieving? And especially about my grandfather. And I was like, okay, that's what older people do. They die. And not to say that, not to be insensitive, but at this point, it's like 9 years. Now, honestly, I'll be honest, I view the death of my mother differently because she wasn't old when she passed. But we know grandparents, their time or whatever. But I was like, no, that's not it. Like I'm not sad about them, passing away. We've dealt with that. We understand that they're in a better place, but there is something that's still off. And I had to go through this process that I wrote in my book, Embracing Grit for Greatness. Now, I am going to talk a lot from my book, especially in this group. But by all means, you don't have to purchase the book. I would love for you to purchase the book, but I just really want you to hear what I'm about to talk about, because sometimes I think as high achievers, we work hard. We know how to keep ourselves busy. We know how not to deal with things. We can pick and choose when to deal with things. We can compartmentalize. I was a master at that. And it's like, I'll deal with that later. That's how I was able to finish my PhD program in 3 years, even though my mother had just passed. So we know how to do all of that. But I was like, whoa. Something's off and something's slowing down my momentum. Something is like self-sabotaging. So what is it? So after listening to my sister and her telling me like, this is the first time you slow down, and your relationship was different, things like that. And I was like, yeah, that's true, but what else? And it hit me. And when I say it hit me, like my body started reacting. Like I was breaking out in hives. I started having this self-doubt that, that's been coming from nowhere. Like there are things that I was doing that kind of scared me a little bit, but I was like, the person that I am, where is this type of doubt coming from, over some like basic stuff? Like, why can't I make basic decisions, especially in business and things like that? So I realized that it wasn't the death per se, it was the things surrounding the death. And as it related to me growing my business, I was like, that's the trigger. This trigger of putting things together, doing paperwork, building a system or a strategy, getting things in place, planning for a big event. That was the trigger that brought up all of this trauma. And what was it? You may not believe me. If you can guess it before I say it, put it in the comments below. It was all of the work of preparing for 2 funerals, going to like these last doctor's appointments, making calls for hospice, and dealing with bills and paperwork, dealing with the finances of my mother's house and the life insurance policies, all of this stuff, because I felt, and I'm better now, but during my personal development journey, it was like I felt like I failed my grandfather and my mother in certain areas. And I talk about that in the book as well. So I was like, okay, no, we're better than this. I had gotten over that, or I dealt with that. You don't want to go over, you want to deal with it. But then it was like, well, what is it? So then it showed back up again. Little me showed back up again and was like, oh, you don't know how to handle business, or why are you trying to plan and launch an event? Why are you trying to, venture out and do this business on your own? Shouldn't you be comfortable with being a professor? You know how that works. So I want you to kind of see the parallel. I talk about this in my book, how a lot of times our lives, like, we live in parallel lives. It can feel that way sometimes. And it was like, no, we need to blend those together. So let me make sure that I'm clear. So I've learned how to deal with and bounce back with dealing with death and grief and all of that. But then here go little me again, feeling like I don't know how to handle business. Am I going to fail again at my business? Am I going to fail again at the plans because I don't know everything? And that caused me to go into frantic research of like looking up any and everything and questioning myself again. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that. So I want to read this quote to you. It's in my book, and it's in the chapter about resilience, chapter 7. So I'm going to read 2 quotes. So Big Me says, "My barn having burned down, I can now see the moon." And I can't pronounce this name, but it was from a 17th century Japanese poet and samurai. So Big Me, when I was dealing with the feelings of, planning for the funerals and things like that, or even making the shifts in my own career. And I was like, no, it may not look great, but I know how to make this happen. I can bounce back from that, right? So I know I have this bounce back muscle. I know that I can get back up from a situation that doesn't look so great. But then again, little me showed up. And the quote for little me that I wrote in here is in chapter 8. It says, "Resilience is accepting your new reality, even if it's less good than the one you had before. You can fight it. You can do nothing but scream about what you've lost, or you can accept that and try to put something together, something that's good." By Elizabeth Edwards. But I never got to the something that was good. I was still kicking and screaming about why can't I get this business together. And my mind, the trigger just brought back all of that trauma, and my body literally felt the trauma of and the weight of trying to plan funerals. And I even went all the way to my grandmother, like, what am I going to do when she passed? Now, my grandmother just turned 80. She is alive, well, kicking, and all of that. But I just want you to see how sometimes, these triggers and traumas, if we don't really deal with them, how they can pop back up in other areas of our lives. So if you don't know, I do help high achievers bridge the gap between their personal and professional lives so they can be their most empowered selves. And one way to do that is to shatter our personal glass ceilings that we built for ourselves. So my personal glass ceiling for that moment was forgetting that I was a resilient individual, forgetting that I know how to deal with things. I am a problem solver. If I don't know something, I can figure it out. I'm supported, all of that. And that's what has caused me to slow down all January, not really realizing what in the world that's happening. So I'm glad I caught it soon, but it was still 3 weeks too long. So yesterday, when I was just sitting in my space, like I didn't move for a couple of hours because I had to go through this process of what I'll share a little bit of with you. But while I do believe personal development journeys should take time, and you really need to like go through a process and all of that, once you've gone through something one time, you don't have to keep it shouldn't take that long again. So yes, I spent a couple of years going through personal development, and I'm still in personal development, by the way. But I had to go back through some exercises. So I talk about this on page 147 of my book. So it's chapter 15. Like, the book has a lot of chapters, but it's not that big. So they're very short chapters. But one part of being resilient and having the bounce back muscle that I've learned through my personal development journey, and I want to share with you, is I had to build up the faith and self muscle. So I literally had to sit there, and it says, trusting in myself to see where I can go before reaching my destination. Now, that doesn't mean I believe in God. So that doesn't mean that I'm just out here just doing things on my own. But God has equipped me, because I'm a co-creator with him. He's equipped me to say, okay, I built you for this. You can get through this. Have faith. Of course, I have faith in God, but we also need to have faith in ourselves to know that God told us what to do and we can do it, right? So this is not a Bible study lesson, but sometimes we say, oh, I have all this faith in God, but we won't move. Okay, different story. So I had to sit there and say, okay, Vernita, you were able to support your grandmother, to go through all of the planning, the doctor's appointments, the dealing with the lawyers, sometimes not the best lawyers. So yes, it didn't work out exactly how you wanted it to work out, but you were able to figure out the finances. You were able to put all of these things in place, and you survived, and your grandmother is doing just fine. You can do the same in your business. You know the steps that you have to take. You know the content that you want to provide. You know the people that you want to help and service. You know the strategies. You have business strategies. You've gotten support in that area. You can do this, right? So I had to literally sit there, and it took me a couple of hours. I'm just going to tell you the truth. It took me a couple of hours to say, okay, I can do this. I was only planning on sharing one, but I'll share you another one on the building your bounce back muscle is take action muscle, knowing how to keep going and push past where I normally stopped. Yeah, by now, back then, if I didn't go through this process, I would have probably been like, whatever, I'll just be the college professor and suck it up, and maybe I'll consult on the side somewhere. But I was like, no. Because you said to yourself, now this is me talking to myself, you said you got tired of writing the same goals in your journals and your planners year after year after year. We are not going to stop because little me showed up and acted as if, you weren't a resilient person, like you just gave up all the time, or you don't know how to recover, right? Excuse me. So that's what I wanted to share with you. So it took me a few hours, and I snapped out of it, and it was like, okay, get it together. So I'm here to tell you that sometimes if we sit and process, and as high achievers, we want things to happen very quickly. while this happened quickly for me in a couple of hours, I want you to know it took me some years to build that muscle. So I want to challenge you to like sit down and think about like the last time, and I write this in the book, they're called grit check-ins. When was the last time that you had to experience being resilient? When was the last time that something happened that may have caused a setback, whether it's in your job? I do talk about the professional side because that's the side we build up the most. What was the side that you like, okay, maybe they told you you weren't worthy of this job promotion or you got overlooked, but you were defeated a little bit, but then you snapped out of it. Either you got a different job or you made some things happen, then you eventually got the promotion and you did that, and you bounced back from that, right? When was the last time you did that? So I want you to look at that so you can see that you do have that characteristic. You do have that muscle. But then I also want you to look at your personal life and say, what has caused me to like not reach another level? Like whether it's my personal finances, my health and wellness, my organized space, what my relationships, where am I still lacking or feeling like I'm still defeated in this area? So let me just go back and sum all of this up. If you're joining me late, or you somehow you skip past certain things in the video, I don't know. But to sum this up, I know that I'm a resilient person. I know that I can bounce back from setbacks. I know I can pick myself back up. I know this. The issue was when the trigger came from the anniversary of my grandfather's death. It's been 9 years. So it's like there was some background noise that was happening that I wasn't aware of. Like I knew I slowed down, but I couldn't figure out why. And my body was reacting to some subconscious trauma. I think that's the thing. I'm a doctor, but not that kind of doctor. So if that's the thing, put that in the comments below so I can read more about that. But it was like subconscious trauma. My body was going through the motions of everything that was leading up to the death of my grandfather, and then everything that happened after, and dealing with the paperwork, the finances, all of that. And that showed up in me how I was responding to my own business, the one that I'm building, and putting more effort in. And I was feeling like, oh, I can't do this. This is too much. I don't want to go through all of that planning and all of that stuff. And I couldn't figure out why. And it was the trigger and the trauma from the personal side showing up in my business side. So I just wanted to recap of why I was talking about embracing the triggers and trauma, and what does that have to do with embracing grit for greatness. Once we deal with it and identify the triggers, then we're able to go to the next level. Sometimes I think we're stuck because we're not embracing it. As high achievers now, this may not be you, but I know it's me. Sometimes we are like, oh, I don't feel like dealing with that right now. Or we throw ourselves into work or into more projects and things like that. And then we never deal with it, and it keeps coming up. And then all of a sudden we're at this plateau and we can't figure out why we're not advancing. Is because we haven't dealt with the issues or the triggers in our personal side. Because I know you've been two different people, maybe three, but you've been at least two different people. And it's like, if you want to be your most empowered self, you have to deal with all areas of your life and build up all areas of your life. And that's why the subtitle is Becoming Professionally Powerful Through Personal Empowerment. You can do the doggone thing on your own. You have been. You're probably at the top of your game right now. But how? And I know you have dreams and desires that you probably haven't tapped into because you think it's all about just your work and your title and your status. But there's more that you're supposed to be doing, and you're probably not reaching your full level of greatness and brilliance because you need to build up that personal empowerment side. All right, so I wanted to share that with you. I would love to hear from you. Again, if you're watching the replay, click hashtag replay. Let me know what resonated with you. Put it in the comments below. And I'm going to tell you two things. I always do an offer or an invite. It's up to you. You get to choose, but it is my responsibility to offer you a different pathway. One, you can purchase my book. You can go to embracinggritforgreatnessbook.com. Read all of that information. I'll make sure I have it in the description box as well. And then you can also sign up for drvernitafreegift.com, which is 10 ways to look good on paper and in life. You know, I'm just excited about that guide. I created a masterclass and a guide to go along with that, and it was just fun to create, and I think it was very valuable and useful. So those are my two invitations to you. Um, it's up to you. Choose which one would benefit you. Perhaps this video is just enough, and that's just fine as well. So I am Dr. V. Thank you so much for listening and watching with me, and I will see you next time. Bye.